Hello,
Hey,
everyone. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Just, I don't know, a bit tired today, but looking forward to the week. It's going to be a busy week, busy
Yeah.
couple of weeks ahead. How are you doing?
Oh yeah. Good, good. We did our long 9 mile walk yesterday, and
Mm,
it just wears you out. So
yeah.
we're out for the rest of the day. But otherwise
Where
it
do you
was
go
it
when
was
you do your
decent.
9 mile walk?
We pick a direction. Probably it's like exploring Houston by foot. So like this time we went east down the Braze Bayou, and it was slippery in parts of the trail. But we also went all the way east and then went up towards navigation, and then ended up taking the light rail kind of back home. So it was good.
Hmm.
It's a good way to see the different things, and well, at some point we're going to cycle through everything because there are only four directions to really go. So yeah.
Okay, good. Well, should we begin?
Well, yeah. Let's just jump right in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, since we're still new at doing this, let's introduce ourselves. Do you want to talk a little bit about who we are, Energy Tech Nexus?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jason here at the Energy Tech Nexus. We support innovators and entrepreneurs working in the energy transition. We have the largest community, I think, of innovators here in Houston, working on everything from low carbon technologies, traditional energy, to renewables, and then we include materials and things like that. And our big thing is bringing people together. And the Thunderwatch is about providing context with the broader ecosystem, and kind of the news of the day, and then how entrepreneurs and innovators should think about how the changing world is, and how they should keep up. So that's what we're doing here at the Thunder Watch.
Mm. Um, yeah, and yeah, the goal here is to kind of tell you not only about what's happening, what events we've been to, what events are upcoming, but also share the latest in energy tech news with people who show up here. And, most importantly, we do this live because we want this to be interactive. So if you're joining us, say hi on the chat so that we know you're there. If you have any questions about what we are talking about, please feel free to ask and let us know about, what events you went to last week or are planning to go to this week, and we can talk about that. Another thing we spoke
Good.
about last time was like we also want to be able to bring on people live as they join. So that's all. If you want to just come on live, ask a question, we can send you a link for you to do that. So feel free to raise your hand and let us know, and we'll bring you on too.
Yeah, we might have to. I see Jan here. We might have to bring him on to talk about Venture University in a little bit. So
Is he
just be
there?
on notice. I think I just saw him pop in.
Okay, awesome.
Oh,
Yeah, then we'll bring you on a bit later. Yeah, and I'll send you a link. But
good.
Jason, you went to an event on Friday that was hosted by Avatar. You
Yeah.
want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Avatar Innovations is coming to Houston. They started in 2020, and they are focused on carbon tech innovation, much like we're focused on energy tech innovation. I think it's all talking about climate and energy, but under various guises. Brian Trundle was host. I think he's the COO over there. And they basically did a joint event that was hybrid between Calgary and Houston. It was very well done in terms of just keeping it organized and keeping the flow going. I know how hard it is to run events like that. But they are running a set of programs focused on this kind of innovation, and they talk about creating this third space for people to come together between energy companies, academia, and individuals to tackle challenges in energy and decarbonization. And basically, they run a 14-week program where people learn about various topics in energy. They put together teams to try and solve problems, and then they have a funnel process to try and figure out who the best ones are that they want to pull into their studio model. And then the studio is like a traditional venture studio in the sense that they put their resources together, put some capital together, and help start a team or kick off a team with the best ideas. And so it's creative in the sense that they found a funnel or a way to pull in entrepreneurs and create some scale. And in the scheme of things, I think they run a larger program. I think they said at one point there were 400 people running through it. So it's there's some scale at the front end, and I think one of the things we see is we see a lot of people generally who have technologies or ideas, but they never make that running start to really get a company off the ground. In part because like finding team members is hard, and then the other part is not everyone wants to be a CEO. Sometimes they just have an idea, but they want to hand it off to someone who does want to start a company, who does want to go through the grind of fundraising. And so it's a interesting way to build teams and figure out what's really got legs. And so they're coming to Houston in terms of having an outpost here. And it's a good thing for our city. And importantly, I think it's a recognition that Houston's evolved as an innovation center. I don't think 5 years ago anyone would have really looked at Houston and said, "I want to launch a kind of an acceleration program here." But because we have such a broad ecosystem now, it makes it tenable. And similarly, we're seeing other organizations come back. I think we mentioned last week how Plug and Play Ventures is coming back into the space, and others. So the ecosystem is growing organically in a different way this time. So it's good.
Hmm. Interesting.
Um,
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and so they've already been established in Canada. I've been running this program in Calgary, I believe.
Yeah.
And are they partnering with corporates here? And my my understanding was that they will collaborate with these corporates and then take 10, 20 of their employees and make them kind of go through this program. Is that how they do it? Mm.
Yeah, I think that's what that makes it interesting is you think about all these folks in the energy transition where they're coming from industry and transitioning over. And the partnerships are from the I assume the company is essentially paying for the education series and that 15-week program, and that allows them to contribute, but also just kind of bring in ideas that they're seeing from their companies. I can also see from a corporate development standpoint, it's a way to provide some education to their employees. Is just kind of regular training. I think one of the things that we saw in the 2020s as well was just an explosion of climate focused programs that really picked up. Everything from on deck climate, which unfortunately isn't here anymore, to a variety of other programs. And so there's a real demand I think they tapped into, where people were looking to get smart on climate in a big way. And they've figured out how to turn this into a flywheel to promote kind of actual company formation, which is a little different from other groups that might just be interested in getting smart on climate topics.
Okay, interesting. Well, and when do they start?
Um, that I did not pick up on. I showed up a little late, so I clicked on the
Okay.
program. I got
Okay.
the
Yeah.
sense that
Yeah.
they're either launching the next set they got a new cohort starting, and they're mid cohort right now.
Mhm.
But one of the things I did want to spend some time on is a presentation that was given by Arc Financial. I think the gentleman was Peter. I'm going to butcher this name. Terzakian. Peter Terzakian. Okay, Google Arc Financial. You'll see him. And gave a very interesting presentation on his perspective of the economy and really just the catalyzing forces um, uh, in our ecosystem. And he was trying to provide context around kind of the Trump policies, some policies we're going to see in Europe, and interestingly China. And I want to share it because it really opened my brain to a different way of thinking. And he started kind of didactically talking about like old school economics, specifically if you remember your like wealth of nations from history, mercantilism was like an old form of economy that we used to have. You think about the British Empire, the Japanese Imperial Empire. These are all kind of these old forms of government and trade where the government would kind of control everything. They would dictate who would get what, and the goal was to kind of aggregate as much resources as possible. And the counterpoint was capitalism, where like trade is kind of governed by demand, it's governed by consumerism. And in that kind of ecosystem, companies really compete with each other for the best resources. and the best and access to markets. And when you think about the U.S. today, I think 65% or something of the market's driven by kind of consumer purchasing, and then we like to think of the U.S. as a very capitalist ecosystem. But interestingly, when you think about our energy policy in the US, it's actually very mercantile. It's very much like we want to make sure we have access to energy because energy does let you kind of do amazing things. Um, and that means kind of cornering access. And so you think about like the US always being very concerned about energy stability and oil price stability. That was a mercantile kind of policy. And what he was suggesting and alluding to is China very much as it opened up to the rest of the world, does take a state-driven approach. It's companies owned by the state or sanctioned by the state who do a lot of the work, but they've also just cornered a lot of resources that are kind of strategic to energy, be it critical resources in for batteries or rare earth magnets or other things. And the context here as it applies to kind of the Trump policy and kind of discussions around let's take Greenland, let's get access to resources in Ukraine and claim a right to all the critical minerals. If you put it under the framework of kind of imperial mercantilism, it's like, oh, that's exactly the strategy. You want to lock in these critical resources, and importantly, it's kind of country to country, which is also the same kind of messaging we're seeing.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's just very interesting. Like, okay, this is literally 500 years of history coming to a head. This is what's going on. You're never in a pure capitalism system. You're never in a pure mercantilism system. But it gives you a context to think. So, what does that mean for entrepreneurs? And I think what we're going to see here is while there was a hope that like carbon markets and the free economy would drive a lot, um, in a kind of country first ecosystem, it's about energy security. It's about making sure we have access to those critical resources. And importantly, if you're kind of in pure alignment with the government and its kind of energy agenda, there's going to be extra resources, going to be extra support in a very deliberate way. And that's good for you if you're in that business. Not so useful for you if you're not. But when we think about where the U.S. energy policy is going to be, we've heard a lot of things about drill, baby, drill. But the other place I would look is looking at like what the U.S. military is doing for energy security, because they're kind of like the vanguard of actually thinking about our energy supply chain. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's really good tea leaves on how to think about energy security through there. And we already know they're rewriting the playbook from seeing the most recent conflicts in Europe and in the Middle East in terms of how they're thinking about energy security. So everything from geothermal to batteries to kind of managing just even sea level rise as it pertains to the Navy is probably a good indicator where capital is going to go if we have a world that is much more um, mercantile in its thinking. And so I thought that was very interesting. And then obviously we had the elections like yesterday in Germany, where the Conservative Party took a pretty big lead over the traditional Liberal Party. And I think if you do some very like surface level research, the similar policies will hold. It's going to be about energy security. There's rumors they're going to talk about bringing in nuclear again, or at least open to it. And so we could see a world where again it's kind of making sure you have that energy in hand. And here in Houston, I think we've been talking about the pressure for decarbonization is going to continue to come from Europe. And I think that's still going to be true because obviously the whole bloc votes on things and works together on things. But if you view generally the reaction to kind of the war in Ukraine has been to make sure there's abundant resources for energy and in Europe, then there's going to be that same kind of market force for energy systems that create a lot of resilience. And so I think that's the thing that entrepreneurs should think about adjusting their lexicon of not is it just decarbonization that's still important, but really the resilience is what's going to sell energy solutions if this is the direction we're going.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
and that's an important point because with renewables, I mean, even though they get a lot of pushback for being intermittent, but they're not, it's fuel that's always there. Like, so
oh
sun
yeah,
is always going to shine. You might have some cloudy days, but the sun will be there. And the same with the wind, right? So that resilience from introducing solar and wind, so that when at some point, we might run out of natural gas or we might run out of oil and gas.
yeah.
So you want to be able to have those, and and it's not in the short term. Like it's not going to happen in the next 50 years or even 100 years. It might be 200 years. But a question I ask myself is like, when you're thinking long term, how long term are you thinking? Are you thinking beyond your own generation?
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
mhm,
the thing is,
mhm,
and I didn't verify this, but William Taggart, again, one of our members, brought up to me that there's always this like concept of peak oil, right? And there was a concern of peak oil in the 70s. Oil kind of started coming out of BRIC countries and OPEC, and that kind of
mhm,
provided more supply over the last 50 years. So there's always like more supply. But the U.S. Kind of workhorse is the Permian Basin. It's been active since I don't know 100 years, and early indications are peak oil out of the Permian might be in the next 10 years. And so
mhm.
yes, it'll always be there, but there's so much
Yeah.
inelasticity in supply and demand. I think the U.S. doesn't run the same large kind of strategic reserves of oil it used to, and
Mhm,
so a substantial decrease in kind of the most productive oil could make the prices kind of in the long term go up,
mhm.
because that basin just isn't as good as it used to be.
Yeah.
So yes, it'll still be here in 50 or
It'll
100
still be
years, but
here,
like
but it'll be more
might be
expensive.
expensive.
Yeah, it'll be
Exactly.
very expensive. It'll be, like harder to get to.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like right now, shale is not really booming the way it was 10 years ago,
Yeah.
because the oil price is, the oil price has to be very high, for shale to be economically feasible.
Well, I
Mhm,
think it's also like they've gotten better at just understanding like how quickly they can deploy capital
mhm,
and turn that into oil. Because like you can drill and frack and get a new well up and running in a very short period of time. And
mm,
there's no reason to be like if you have good predictions of economics, kind of what the global demand is, there isn't a reason to like shoot yourself in the foot to like produce more because there's kind of a healthy price people want to substantiate. So
mhm,
I think there's a view that it's kind of healthy right now because obviously a lot of the oil companies are producing good profits, but
mhm.
there's not a desire to like accelerate drilling. I think
Yeah.
that's the key difference here.
Mhm. Yeah. Good. Do we want to talk about the podcast that we did on Friday? We recorded a new podcast with David from Rev Fuels.
Revs.
Yeah, Revs.
Refuel EVs,
Refuels.
revs. Yes.
Refuels
Yeah.
EV Revs.
Yeah. Do you want to give the like 2 minute synopsis?
Yeah. So, it was the first time that we met Rev. We met David, and he talked about how, he's really seeing that in the future
Mhm.
we will definitely have more demand for EV charging. And in particular, he's looking at multi-tenant properties, so apartment
Mhm.
buildings, etc., where multifamily homes, and being able to get them ready for this surge of demand that you will see. So that's what they're developing. He's kind of an operator, so they operate these charging systems, give them the best option based on what these properties are looking for, what kind of systems they already have set up, and in a matter of 4 years, they've seen really good scale and take up on this because it's not only even if the properties themselves are not seeing this, their customers are coming to them and saying, we want to be able to charge our cars at home. And an example that he gave was that, why don't these multi-tenant homes and like apartment buildings, why don't they have like a gas station on
Mhm.
their buildings? Because people should be able to get refueled at their homes. And we're not really used to thinking in that way because you go to a gas station and you get fueled there. But with EV charging, the whole paradigm shifts. You shouldn't have to go somewhere to charge your car. You can charge it right at home at nighttime when the car is idle. Um, so that's their business model is that they put up all the upfront cost of putting the system in, and then they charge for the usage of their chargers.
Yeah. No, and I think
Mm,
and we'll see more when that podcast drops. But I think
Mm,
David did a good job of kind of explaining his journey, and I think he's a classic like Houstonian entrepreneur. Sees a problem and has to go solve it with a balance of technical depth, but also coming in from a financial perspective. Um, and from what we investigated with kind of the model of the business, reminded me a lot of some really meaningful and similar like operating companies here, where we like to deploy assets in Houston. It reminded me of like compression services or power as a service, and just set up in a different way. And I think we're just waiting to see which company figures this out in a big way, and it's inevitable a Houston private equity firm will deploy capital, because you have clear usage, real estate, and a market that's just growing. And Houston's really good at putting big capital behind projects like that.
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I know, I think we have Jan on here. Jan, if you're still here, just say hi in the chat. And we were wondering if you want to, before it gets too late, talk a little bit about the event that you're hosting tomorrow at the Cannon, or not the Cannon, the Memorial location of Metro National.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
we'll give him a moment to see if he's in the right place.
Yeah.
But I
Mm,
think other things that are going on
mm,
this week, we have a Determined to Lead on Friday.
mhm.
Do you want to talk a little bit about who our guest is there?
Yeah, so the Determined to Lead lunch is a lunch we do featuring women leaders in the energy transition. This time around, we are collaborating with Chevron, and we'll be hosting this lunch at their location at the Ion at their
Mm,
Chevron studios. So please join us. It's open to everybody, but you just have to register on Luma. You can find Determined to Lead Women's Lunch. So just register because we need to make sure everyone's registered before they come, and then we have the right amount of food. Um, and for this session, we'll talk about corporate innovation and what corporates are doing to get innovation going within their companies, and also how they incorporate innovations from outside and collaborate with entrepreneurs and founders. And we'll talk a little bit about the Chevron studios, how they're set up. We'll have speakers from the venture team. So, so yeah, I'm excited about that, and looking forward to it on Friday.
good.
Mm.
What else do we have this week? We have a call for referrals for this. It's a program run at NREL called IN2, and they have a cohort 15 resilience for the built environment. And in this, I think we're specifically looking for TRL5 companies, and they're supposed to talk to you, Nada. So what is it they should be talking to you about?
Yeah, no, I think yeah, if you think you qualify for that, they're looking for recommendations basically from us on companies that qualify for this. I don't know if it's an award or a grant, but let us know if this is something that you think your company qualifies for, and we'll. I think I just saw Jan pop in here, and we'll put your name through to them. To
Hey,
NREL.
okay.
Yeah.
We'll we'll get to you on in a second, but I'll finish this thought up. So,
Mhm.
they're looking for TRL 5 plus companies and specific technologies. I think it's energy storage, solar plus storage, grid resilience, passive load management,
Mhm.
and fuel backup systems. So this is all about like grid resilience. And I think the deadline's Thursday. So, like, yeah, if that's you, reach out to us,
Mhm.
and we'll send a proposal along. Hey, Jan, good to see you. Is
We
the
can see
audio
you.
coming
Can you
through?
hear us? I think the
I don't
sound is coming through. We can hear you, but you can't seem to hear us, I think.
This is like live technical, what have you. It might be a audio. Remember how I had that audio issue on my end? I wonder if it's just the software.
Oh, he said
Hey,
pick it
can
up.
you hear me?
Yeah, we can
Yeah,
hear
you're
you.
coming through.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
there's just a weird sound.
Yeah, yeah, maybe you have like a LinkedIn. Your maybe because your volume from the LinkedIn Live is coming through. I don't know.
There we go.
Yeah,
Well,
maybe that helps.
while Jan is kind of working through that, um, what else do we have we want to talk about in the meantime?
We have, Sarah Week is coming up in about 2 weeks, and that's going to
Mm,
be a big week for us. At Energy Tech Nexus, we have a partnership with Canada. Canada is a big sponsor of Sarah Week, so we will be there all week. You'll find us at the Agora, and you'll also find the 9 companies that are coming down from Atlantic Canada scale ups. So if you want to learn more about that, those companies come to the Canada booth, the Canada House, and then as Energy Tech Nexus, we're hosting our own event during Sarah Week at Green Street in downtown. So that's a 10-minute walk from the Agora. We're calling it the Energy Tech Market. And we'll be having 4 different sessions focused on ocean technologies, on carbon management and clean energies, nature-based solutions, industrial monitoring, and stakeholder engagement. We'll have scale-ups being featured, but we'll also have corporates who will either be moderating, or they will also be speakers from Halliburton, Baker Hughes, NG, Saudi Aramco. And you also have the opportunity, if you're corporate, want to set up B2B meetings with some of these scale-ups that we're bringing in, or Energy Tech Nexus scale-ups, you can sign up. All that information you can find on our Luma. So if you follow Energy Tech Nexus on lu.ma Luma, you will see the event. So please register. Lunch will be provided, and it'll be one of the most fun events happening during Sarah Week.
fun is important. All right, Jan, are we coming through?
Yeah.
Good. You want to talk a little bit
I
about?
can hear you, but I still hear not a talking.
Oh, that's because you're still going into our live. So maybe can you get out of our live on LinkedIn?
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
Okay,
It's
how
running
about
on
that?
another tab. There you go.
Does it work now?
Is it?
Yep.
Does it?
Yep.
Is it good for you?
Okay,
Okay.
well, that's better. That's why it was. Okay.
The time delay isn't exactly live. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good to
Yeah.
see you here.
I like that you brought your coffee.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you gotta have your coffee. Got to have your love
Yeah.
and the equations.
I'm on brand with mine, so that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us about what you're up to, Jan. What's going on?
Well, it's been exciting. It's been busy lately, and super excited, as I said, to bring that partnership with Venture University to bring it to town. And my thesis has always been that we needed more trained people in the venture space, really, that could sort of start tapping into both the capital and also support our entrepreneurs ecosystem. So, as some of you know, I've already been involved in sort of as a student taking sort of the Venture University program. I did that back in the spring. I'm back in it now. Get the opportunity to serve, not just take a master class and learn the theory about investing, but I actually serve as doing an apprenticeship where you actually participate with the fund. You source deals, you do due diligence, you create conviction, you prepare and present to the investment committee. So you learn that entire pipeline, with people around you, guiding you, and, giving you the hard question. Not every IC is equally easy to get through, that I have to say. You learn a lot. And the opportunity came to kind of like, how do we bring that to Houston? How do we actually offer a program in Houston that really can help us train more people to be sort of savvy investors? The thesis is that we don't have enough of them. If you talk to Neil Dykman, he has a very half glass empty kind of approach to it. I think maybe it's not maybe as bad, but it is sort of not where it needs to be. And so the opportunity to have them then. So we have an event tomorrow night, 5 to 7 p.m. Out at Memorial City. It's at 960 Memorial Way. Check it out. I'll maybe chat the link to it afterwards. But the founder and general partner of the fund, Be Your Venture Partner, that runs Venture University, will be in town, and he'll give us sort of give a talk overview of this one and ask me anything. So we still have a few seats available. I'm hoping we already have well over 50 people registered, and I'm looking for more to join us, to really kind of just like take a look at this and say, well, maybe I could be smarter about how I deploy my money. If you already are investing, maybe I have something I could learn from that. Or I've always been wanting to understand the venture investment pipeline. How could I learn that? I could be an entrepreneur and a founder. You sitting down and learning about how funds are looking at your deal, whether they are or not, like that will help you get ready to sit down and have conversations with venture investors. So there's a lot of aspect of participating in this. As I said, there's a lot of MBA programs that offer similar things, but they only offer the theory. Now you just throw you into the world and then you start. I think the unique thing about the venture university is that they actually offer an apprenticeship program. So I'm right now part of a deal team for Venture University. We are about 30 or 40 people that's in the program. We are sourcing deals, we're the due diligencing, we're calling on them, we're that thorn in the side of the founder, asking questions so we can fully understand your deal. And if it isn't the right time for us, we will still be a partner with you and help you sort of grow into your business. We will make connections with other partners. So that's really the essence of the program. And I'm hoping to have a good, vibrant conversation tomorrow night around that and the opportunity to participate in the program.
Okay, so this is for anyone interested in investing, whether you're an angel investor or interested in entering venture capital.
Yeah, it is, but it also don't underestimate the value of it. It could be for founders that maybe right now doesn't have a particular desire to that, but to better understand investors. Because there's a tendency for a lot of entrepreneurs to sort of blame the investor for, oh, I'm not funding my deal. Well, maybe you're not ready yet. Maybe it's not the right fund. Maybe there are things you're not actually talking about in your pitch to them. And maybe you shouldn't be pitching, you should be asking for help. And if you ask for help, sometimes you get funding.
I think one of the eye-opening things for me fundraising, well, it's just something I learned after fundraising, let me put it this way, is turning down a founder, it's hard. Like, it's like you feel a little mean when you have to give people bad news. Like, I like you, but I don't like you enough to put, or it's hard to separate. I don't like you enough to put money in you, or alternatively, I don't think your business is ready. And I think, everyone's worked in a situation where you've had to be a manager or had to have a manager give you bad news. It's just awkward. And I can see why some investors just don't want to tell you why they're passing, because it's just a conversation no one wants to have. Because I think the reality is you still want to work with someone, you still want to be helpful with them, but it just doesn't meet the bar. And for better or worse, everyone's kind of filter or requirements of investment committee I see is just different. And it definitely took me a few financings to figure out that it wasn't like it was just like not a fit. It had nothing to do with you're not pitching well enough. So I'm curious, Jan. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask, like, from your experience going through this, do you, and kind of the view back on Houston, do you think we need, it's about getting more kind of people plugged into the ecosystem? And I guess we lost Nada over here.
I'm still here. I'm still here.
You don't like us, Nada?
No. I was just playing. I was like, because since both of you you were asking the question, I was gonna take my camera off and see how that looks. But no, I'll keep it on because it confuses you guys.
Yeah.
But no, Jan, I'm curious. Do you think that this is a matter of education? Like, if we, there's tons of, what I would say accredited investors here in Houston who had qualified. And do you think people just don't do the early stage investing because they're afraid of it, or they just don't have time? Like, what's your sense of the biggest barriers here in our ecosystem?
Well, and this is a little bit of just, I haven't done a serious sort of survey of this, but there's certainly a fair number of investors in town that do that, but they tend to invest in what they know. And a lot of the capital in Houston is tied up into real estate and minerals and that space. And so it's a very different sort of investment portfolio than doing higher risk venture capital. So so I do think that there is a value to kind of sitting down and saying, okay, so how do I go about the whole process? And my other thing is that if we have more funds, if we have more venture investor, there is more conversations about when are you ready? How are you ready? There's more people to ask for help. And at that point, there's more opportunities to make investment. Now, it is, I always like to caution also having more funds and investors in town. As soon as you raise a fund, your obligation is to the LPs.
Yep.
Because you want to return the fund. Doesn't mean that you can limit yourself to only invest in Houston. But if we have more Houston investors, there is more likelihood of that money also landing here. So I think entrepreneurs need to still think about having just double the number of funds in Houston doesn't mean more, unless we actually listen and participate in the conversation about how to get the company ready to be invested in. Now, Houston is also unique in its heavy asset industry base, which is a little bit scary for most California funds because they're, most of them are SaaS. We start seeing now some that do more heavy asset industry, deep tech, hard tech, but that's not the traditional there. So there's also an opportunity for us to educate some of those funds to bring them in here and say, well, here's the Houston ecosystem, so your patience and your capital for a tech company may have to be more like a health tech company because healthcare and the molecules is a much longer runway and you're still investing in that. So I think there is some cross learning to be had also by being more active in the ecosystem here. So I think that all in all, looking back, I felt like what we did at ION was really building and trying to figure out how we can support and grow the entrepreneur side of the house. I think there's an equally important to grow the investment side of the house. So those are kind of what I refer to as the yin and yang of the ecosystem. There needs to be a balance here. And that's really what I'm striving to bring to the Venture University program.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, I think just to think back to history, right? We had the whole HX committees that were kind of brought together. I think there was a premise around pulling together the HX Venture Fund. I think a lot of the ION discussions were kind of inspired by some of those conversations at the city level, and obviously Rice getting involved. Is there, I guess, who else would be tackling the investor side of things, or is this like just a gap that was unsolved out of those conversations?
Personally, I think it's a gap. Everybody keeps talking about it and doing small things. I see that ION and Paul is have done some thing around the fund. Somewhat focused, but also more broadly. I mean, every effort here to bring up the investor side, I think, is a good effort, and it's a welcome effort, and it's much needed. Because people look at Houston and say, well, you guys have more capital than most locales, but you're not deploying it the way. So there's an education of the capital. We have opportunity also. I mean, so if we could start training some of our family funds to think about this investment opportunity as an alternate to the traditional investment they're doing, and the great philanthropy that they should continue doing, is there an other channel and access to for those investments? So I think Houston just kind of we're up and coming. There's an opportunity. I saw this as a unique program that I think could really add value, and I just sort of jumped at it and say, let's figure out how we bring it to Houston and start training more people.
Good. You're reminding me, we had for the longest time, I think, one angel group here in Houston, the Houston Angel Network, and then we also had Goose, which has also been in Houston, it seems like, as long as I remember. But more recently, I saw that Swan has set up a group here they used to be called Southwest Angel Network, and I think they're just branded as Swan now. But it's reminding me of like the East Coast when I was in Boston. I feel like there were like 60 angel groups in the greater Boston metro area, and it wasn't that there was necessarily competition, but like the average group was like 20 people, and it was as much an informal club of folks who just liked investing together, and then you would see individual angels be part of multiple groups. And so while like here in Houston, the Houston Angel Network might be like, I think it's like $2,200 a year for membership. Some of those informal groups were just people invest together. There is no membership fee, but you just got to be invited by whoever does the organizing, essentially. And I'm curious at what point it'll flip over in Houston, where you have kind of this tacit knowledge kind of built up in the ecosystem, where you just got a little group that forms, that they put together a name and an email address, and that is the group that is hyper focused on one technology area. You almost kind of see that in some of the oil and gas, where you get like a little group that comes together with like folks who all came from Weatherford, or there's a small group that all came from Schlumberger. Nothing formal, but I don't think it's as public as it was in the Boston way, in terms of people knowing that these groups even existed. And I'm hopeful that'll be kind of an emergent feature in our ecosystem, is more groups are better, where those groups kind of come together for either a common investment thesis or a common technology area that they're really interested in.
Well, I mean, I think that more is better. That's my philosophy. I think that competition is healthy. Encourage that, support that, and as a matter of fact, think about how you syndicate deals.
Yep.
How do you actually, or federate? If you see somebody, get your allocation, but then make sure that you connect them to the other groups that also might be interested in connecting, and let them form separate SPVs for supporting that. So I think there's an opportunity to not just be an investor, but be a true partner to the startup, where you amplify and you connect them. And even if you have turned them down because it's not right for you, you may know somebody that actually where this would be a perfect fit for. So make introductions, allow them to be successful, and be a champion for the founders and entrepreneur in doing that. So I think that that's something that we certainly are hammered on sort of through the programs. Like, don't end with a no or yes, we invest. That's just the beginning of a relationship, and even a no is a beginning of a potential relationship where you can help them.
Yeah. And it goes the other way. We try to train the founders, like the end of every engagement with any investor, it's like, who else should I talk to who might be interested in the deal? That should be your last question.
Absolutely.
When leaving an introduction call.
Yeah. And I kind of underestimate the importance of starting with asking for help, understanding what I need to do to be ready. Because if investors think that you are interested and want to learn more, they'll ask you to send a pitch deck. It's like I have noticed lately that my inbox is filling up with with pitch decks, and so I mean everybody is out there hustling, and during 1 week of the program we run something called Madness, Startup Madness Week, and we basically have lined up 60 to 80 startups which we actually talk to in a week.
Wow, and that is Madness Week.
Yeah, I know, and so there is a constant blast where you have and so there's multiple calls on Zoom in parallel doing that, and so and that is sort of kind of is the top of the funnel. Then can we invest and talk in details to all of them? No, but you form conviction around a few of them that you then dig into, and so when we have thousands of startups out there, and that's the thing I think maybe Houston sometimes misses. He's like, well, there are thousands of startups here, and they're global, they're national, they're all over the place, and that's the ecosystem you compete in. You're not just competing against, oh, I found my niche in Houston, but guess what? You're just one of potentially tens and hundreds out there that basically have adjacent technology.
So just keeping track of time here, how do people find out more about Venture University? I guess they can reach out to you directly, because I'm sure there's limited spots now available for the session that's tomorrow.
Yeah, so let me just let me see here if I can find my link. You can certainly go to my website. And a plug for that one would be 62xventure.com. all in one word, 62X Ventures with an S, and then there's an event page link there that takes you to the registration page. So again, looking forward to seeing a lot of people out there. I know this came up very quickly. We'll have more sessions, and the first cohort actually that we're hoping to start. And we will be part of what the Venture University called the West cohort, which actually you will not just be in the cohort together with people from Houston. You will be in the cohort with people from Munich, from Sao Paulo, from San Francisco, and people are, taking it both remote and in person. So we will actually set up a room in Houston where we can actually kind of have a Houston cohort, but we will actually have conversations, and be part of deal teams that are actually global.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Awesome. Well, we'll make sure that people get in touch with you, get in touch with 62X Ventures. Drop, either now or later, you can drop the website on the chat if you haven't done so already. We also have one other event coming on the 4th of March, which is a low carbon investment summit that we are hosting together with Flathead Forge and Metro National, where we're bringing together startups, scale-ups within the decarbonization sector, specific focus on water treatment, critical minerals, energy transition, and it's really catered around investors, LPs, family offices, bringing them together and showcasing some of our, not only our startups, but startups within the ecosystem within that space. So I know Sage Geosystems will be there, Hertha Metals will be there, Advanced Ionics, Solidec. Before you leave, Jason, do you want to say a few words about the upcoming event?
Yeah, I think this is a first in terms of trying to bring forward kind of carbon tech investment. We're going to be doing it at Metro National. It's going to be kind of a funky format. We're going to do some short panels, but really the goal is to have people kind of circulating and having conversations. We are featuring 6 companies that are there, kind of giving a 10-minute spotlight, and then we're going to have some spaces also throughout, like little nooks in the space. Provide 6 more, so 12 kind of high quality companies that we want people to look at, and hopefully it's the start of a nice annual tradition here in Houston. And Jan, you said you wanted to mention something else.
Yeah, I do really want to give a big shout out to Metro National for being so receptive to the conversation, and also the Lavas Venture with Ryan Lavasser, in the support of what we're building here. I mean, and then to Energy Tech Nexus, you guys immediately said, let's make sure we can help amplify this, because there's let's build the ecosystem from the ground up.
Yeah. No, it's good.
Yeah,
And
no.
we're getting the same support from them for the low carbon investment summit. So they've been really fantastic to work with.
Yeah. No, I think Metro National, Ryan Lavasser, they're going to play a big role in really helping us build that ecosystem in the energy corridor in the memorial area. So we're excited about working with them and collaborating with them. I think with that, we're going to call it, I don't know, not call it a day, but call it a Thunderwatch. We're going to wrap up, but and start off with our day. So thank you all for joining. If you have any questions, if you watch this recording, please drop them. And yes, Jan was our first guest, so thank you for being that guinea pig and for trying it out with us. It worked. So now we know we can bring in more people. So yeah, thank you, and see you next week.